Welcome back, Fantasy Endgame community. Thanks for joining us as always. We're here to talk about running backs today. We're going to break down our top 24 running backs in the preseason. Look, draft season is basically here. I know training camps are still just getting started. A lot is going to change, but this is the time to start going over those rankings and prepare because some of you draft early, some of you want to get ahead of the game. That's what we're all about, helping you prepare to win. So let's get into the top five. I don't think there's any doubt, Chris. We both have the same number one pick, of course, Christian McCaffrey. We've been through this, right, all offseason. Is there any reason not to have Christian McCaffrey as the number one guy?
No, and I tweeted something out the other day where literally the last three seasons of fantasy football have been Christian McCaffrey, right? In 2018, he was on almost 40% of championship teams on ESPN leagues. In 2019, he had the second greatest fantasy football season ever. And then last year he got hurt, and all the other 11 teams who didn't draft him had a chance. So no, it's Christian McCaffrey at the top, undisputed king.
And then no argument. Also, number two, it's Dalvin Cook. There's really no reason not to have him there. Now, here's where we differ a little bit, and I'll be honest, I moved this just days ago. We know about the Michael Thomas injury. We really have no idea what the Saints offense is going to look like, if it's going to be any good. Look, I'm viewing it as a positive. I bumped Saquon Barkley down from 3 to 4, and I have Kamara now at number 3, right? And then Barkley, and then Derrick Henry, who's a pretty safe pick, I'd say. You still have Barkley 3. You got Kamara down at 5. I mean, don't you think that Kamara sees an uptick in targets now with Thomas out? I mean, this offense basically has to go around him. That's the way I see it.
I don't agree, actually. I think we're going to see there's more and more rumblings that Taysom Hill is going to be the starter. It makes sense now, especially with Thomas out. Why not just have Taysom Hill out there, do a run-heavy offense similar to what we see in Baltimore? And I think, if anything, that means more Latavius Murray. Not significant. I'm not saying Latavius Murray is going to, get more touches than Alvin Kamara. I still have him number 5. But I think we're going to see more Latavius Murray. And I definitely think we're going to see less Kamara in the passing game, which is where he scores over half of his fantasy points in his career. Because with Taysom Hill last year, Taysom Hill only targeted the running backs 19% of the time in his starts, whereas Drew Brees targeted them 26% of the time. So that's a big drop off. So I'm not going to drop Kamara out of the top 5, but I know people are worried about Barkley and his knee. I'm not. I think he's going to be fine. So I have him at 3. And then I just think Zeke is just a safe, high PPR ceiling pick at number 4 as well. So that's why I have him at 4.
Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend to know exactly who's going to start for the Saints and how that offense is going to look. But I don't know. I just feel like especially a guy like Sean Payton, offensive-minded coach, you plan around your best player, right, on offense. And usually you want that to be your quarterback. Well, that's not the case this year, right? It's always been Drew Brees, and now it's not. So I feel like they're going to have to feature Kamara. Maybe I'm being a little too optimistic there, but it's pretty close. And, I won't blame anybody for taking Barkley over Kamara. I'm not worried about the knee either. Zeke, I have coming in number 6. All right, so going through the next group, here's where you see a lot of variation. In our mock drafts, these guys go all sorts of different, combinations. But it's Zeke. I got Eckler, Aaron Jones. Who knows what's going to happen in Green Bay? Jonathan Taylor, and then I have Antonio Gibson. I see you have Henry, Eckler, Jones, Taylor. So pretty much locked up there. And then Nick Chubb. We have just these two guys switched. I know you're going to say something because I don't have Nick Chubb in the top 10. I'm fading. I don't know. The more I think about it, I just don't see him as being a league-winning type of guy in the first round.
Oh, he's absolutely not a league-winning type of guy. And I'm gonna preface this by saying I have Chubb at number 10, but I hardly ever draft Nick Chubb at number 10. Okay, I pass over him a lot in this spot. And to your point, yeah, I mean he had 16 catches last year in 10 games. We're only talking about 1.6 catches per game, less than 2 per game. I may be wrong. He might have played one, but it doesn't matter, right? Very few catches. And we've seen the overall RB1 since 2012 has had at least 40 catches, and all the others have had at least 63. And the 1 year in 2012, Adrian Peterson had over 2,000 yards and 40 catches that year. So I don't think Nick Chubb's going to do that. Nick Chubb to me is one of those guys. He's safe. Everybody, is like, oh, he's a great player, but he doesn't really do much for your fantasy team. But on the flip side, when you look at the guys, like Antonio Gibson that you have ahead of him, I mean, yeah, I see a path for Gibson, but we don't know that's going to be that way. Like, at least with Chubb, we know what you're getting with Nick Chubb. We're talking about the RB10 here, so nobody's expecting him to be the RB1. At least I hope you're not expecting him to be the RB1. So I just feel a little bit better about Nick Chubb. We know his role. We know they're in a run-first offense. We know he's going to get plenty of opportunity. And that defense is good, so he should get lots of chances. So that's why I have Nick Chubb there.
Yeah, and the knock against Chubb is that he's not a pass catcher. Kareem Hunt's going to do all that, right? So the upside is just capped. And by upside, I mean, yeah, he's going to be probably a fantasy RB1, right? He's going to be top 12. I have him in my top 12. He's just not going to be a top 5 running back. And again, I prefer somebody who, even though we don't really know what Jonathan Taylor's going to do this year, he could be a top 5, maybe the top running back in the game if something happens to Christian McCaffrey. But I just don't see that with Chubb. And you know what? The same thing we talked about with Gibson, he wasn't really involved as a pass catcher last year, but they've talked about getting him more involved. It's not going to just be J.D. McKissic catching those dump offs. I think Gibson could see more work as a receiver. They really don't have anything else at running back behind him anyways. So he's going to be one of the few sort of workhorse running backs in the league. Now, Najee Harris is going to be a workhorse running back because that's why they drafted him in the first round. That's why, this is a team that wants to get back to running the ball. He's guaranteed to be a workhorse back, unless injury strikes. I mean, is that crazy to take him over Chubb? Because again, he's going to be a pass catcher too.
Yeah, I think it is crazy. Again, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's never played in the NFL. We're talking about a guy who, running behind a terrible offensive line versus a guy running behind a great offensive line. The Steelers, I think Najee will be involved in the passing game more. And I believe I only have Najee 2 spots below Nick Chubb, if I'm not mistaken. But I think at this point, I would just prefer, because again, it's unlikely that Antonio Gibson, Najee Harris, any of these guys are going to be, top 5 running backs. Could they? Sure. But that, we're not drafting them to be top 5 running backs. I prefer the safety and the know what I'm getting with Chubb versus the perceived upside from a guy who's never played in the NFL and whose, situation we don't really know yet. I do agree. I think Najee will get plenty of volume. I just worry if, the efficiency will be there behind that line. And if Big Ben, is throwing it like he did last year, yeah, he's going to get some of those catches, but I don't think he's going to be like an Alvin Kamara or Austin Eckler type. So, I don't have Najee too far down, but definitely below Chubb.
All right. Yeah, I definitely don't see Alvin Kamara type work for Harris. That is true. But yeah, I just think he's going to get fed and fed and fed, which is why I'm a little bit down on some of the Steeler receivers compared to everyone else, but that's for a different video. All right, let's go down. We still see Joe Mixon. We have both at the exact same spot. And then we see David Montgomery and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Again, same grouping here, just flipped a spot. I know you're a little higher on Edwards-Helaire. I'm just kind of off him. I'm honestly not drafting Edwards-Helaire anywhere just because someone will always draft him before I will. All right, the next group here, this is where we definitely have a little bit of difference. I'm surprised you don't have J.K. Dobbins even lower based on what you've said, right? I got J.K. Dobbins, again, not too high here. He's my RB, 15, 16. And then Carson, Myles Gaskin, kind of these mid-range RB2s, Kareem Hunt, and Josh Jacobs. You got Carson, Sanders, and then Dobbins. I thought you were even lower on Dobbins than that. I'm disappointed to see him in this group for you.
Well, I thought this was pretty low for Dobbins, to be honest. I mean, look, here's the thing about Dobbins. Yeah, I know he's not going to catch many passes, or he's probably not going to catch many passes. But when we're looking at the guys behind him, like Darrell Henderson, it's not like he's locked into some, certain role or things. We know Dobbins is going to be, the quote unquote lead guy there in Baltimore, for whatever that's worth. And, I do think he has plenty of touchdown upside. So I thought this was pretty low for Dobbins. I don't know. I'm sure this is way below consensus. That's for sure.
That's true. Definitely below the consensus. A lot of people high. Look, I'm listening to what you're saying. I've dropped him a little bit in my rankings. I had him in the top 15 before, and I get it. He's not going to catch many passes either. I do think he has a significant amount of touchdown upside. No, we don't like to project touchdowns, but still, you've got to take it into consideration because all these people talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, could do this. He's going to see positive regression in terms of the touchdowns. That's what makes him valuable with Kansas City, is the fact that the Kansas City running back usually gets a ton of touchdowns, right? Even someone like Damian Williams. And so maybe that'll happen. But again, you're projecting there something that's hard to predict. And it's the same thing for Dobbins, but still, that could be something that makes him super valuable. He's getting double-digit touchdowns. That's worth something in fantasy. And so I think you can't just ignore that, plus the fact it's on a run-heavy offense, unlike Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But getting down to the rest of this group here, notice that you got Miles Sanders here. Miles Sanders barely makes the cut in my top 24. Like I'm down. I know you're a little bit down on him. Am I way too down on him? Is this too low to say that he's my RB 24?
I mean, that's pretty low. I'm starting to come around a little bit on Miles Sanders as I've dug into it a little more. He had over 14 carries. I think it was in like 7 or 8 of his games last year, and he didn't play that many games. So I can't put him too high, of course, because he is kind of a little bit of hit or miss as far as consistency goes. But when you look at the rest of that backfield, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, I don't know, Corey Clement, whoever is still there, I think he's gonna get enough work in this offense to kind of be like a top 20-ish back. And he's going to get work in the passing game. He had many games last year where he caught 3-4 more passes than that. So I think that bumps him up ahead of the guys, like J.K. Dobbins, like Darrell Henderson, Myles Gaskin, Kareem Hunt, those guys. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm high on Miles Sanders, but I'm starting to come around on him.
All right. That's fair. I think Gainwell and some of those other guys just get a little bit more action than people think. I mean, I really think this team is not sold on Sanders as the lead back, but also, if Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, which it appears is the case, barring something crazy happening with Deshaun Watson, who apparently they just really, really want, we're going to assume that Hurts, who can run the ball pretty well, is going to be a quarterback. I think that's going to hurt his bottom line. And you did mention Darrell Henderson. You got him at RB19. We did a whole breakdown. If you guys have watched that video on Darrell Henderson, what is he going to do replacing Cam Akers, who sadly is not in our rankings at all, out for this season? I mean, do you think that this is a fair place for him if you are drafting way early? Because what if they make a trade, right? The Rams have been linked to basically every running back, right, in the league now, because everybody wants to put a free agent or some sort of running back like Melvin Gordon or Leonard Fournette getting traded to the Rams. I mean, yeah, that could happen and it could hurt his value, but I mean, you still have him as a top 20 running back?
Well, yeah, I have him 19. But yes, no, I do, because again, when you look at the running backs behind him, Myles Gaskin, Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis, I kind of view like they all have probably gonna have similar touch totals, similar workload. And look, I'm not worried about like Adrian Peterson or Le'Veon Bell. Those guys are just going to be there to get their 8 to 10 touches. Maybe AP vultures some goal line touchdowns, but Malcolm Brown will probably do that to Myles Gaskin. Mike Davis might not even get that many goal line opportunities, and we know the Chubb Hunt situation. So when I look at these guys, I have Darrell Henderson ahead of them because I like this offense a lot, right? This offense should be at least a top 10 offense, if not a top 5 offense. And they're probably going to score a lot of touchdowns. And yeah, I think Matt Stafford's going to get a decent share of that, but there's going to be plenty of goal line opportunities for whoever the running back is. And as of now, it's Darrell Henderson. So to me, of these guys who I kind of all view in like a similar tier or the same, he's above them simply because of the offense he's in and the opportunities he'll get.
Yeah, I mean, you have to love the Rams offense this year with Stafford, and they added some receivers. It kind of the same thing I said about Sanders is I don't feel like they're sold on Henderson enough that they will make him a full-time back. They're going to bring somebody in. We know this. It's just a matter of who and when. If it's just kind of an aging free agent, if they add like LaShawn McCoy, then okay, then whatever. I would put Henderson in my top 20, but I feel like they're going to have somebody splitting time with him, which is why they drafted Cam Akers last year in the first place and why Henderson was basically completely phased out of the offense once Akers was healthy and showed that he could produce at the end of the year. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, and then speaking of Mike Davis, our last 4 here, 21 through 24, you got Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis, Josh Jacobs, and then DeAndre Swift. And then I have Davis, Henderson, Swift, and Sanders barely making the cut there. What about Josh Jacobs all the way down there? I mean, I know Kenyon Drake was brought in to get some touches, but don't you think he still is the lead back? Don't you think he still gets a lot of work and again, has that touchdown upside?
No, I do. But here's why. Because again, I've been diving into this a little more. So last year, Josh Jacobs was 4th in carries, 8th in yards. Or no, sorry, 5th in carries, 8th in yards, and 4th in touchdowns. And everybody's like, yeah, he finishes RB9, I think. Okay, that's great. He had 4 games where he gave you 20 or more points, and every other game was under 14. And he had 6 games where he gave you single-digit points. So for some reason, nobody wants Tyler Lockett, who basically does the same thing as a wide receiver and does it actually better as a wide receiver. But everybody wants Josh Jacobs. Like, again, he's a guy, yeah, you're going to draft him. He's going to get his touches. He's going to give you 3 or 4 games a year where he helps you win. And the rest of the time, you're going to wish you didn't have him. And now, and by the way, that was with Jalen Richard and Devontae Booker. Kenyon Drake is better than both those guys, right? I don't think Kenyon Drake is anything special, but he's better than both of those guys. So if he loses some touches to Kenyon Drake, some of that early down work to Kenyon Drake, and we know he's not going to be involved in the passing game because he's never involved in the passing game, I just don't see how he does even better than he did last year. I think he's going to do worse than he did last year. So I'm really down on Josh Jacobs this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way he does better, probably even matches what he did last year. And if he did, you would be happy based on what's going on. But, last year he was costing you, what, a 2nd-round pick, if I remember, and, in most fantasy drafts. And this year he's down 5th, 6th round. So I think there's a point where he just becomes a good value pick because he's technically still is the lead back. Like, look, the Raiders might not be good and they might not be able to run the ball. He was one of the most game script dependent running backs. And that's the issue. Like you said, he'll pile up the big yardage and get the touchdowns when they're winning and when things are going well for the Raiders. How often are things going to go well for the Raiders this year? I don't know. Their defense is not better and their offensive line isn't better. So those are definitely concerns. But I mean, I still think he's a top 20 back just because I have more legit concerns about the touch totals for guys like Mike Davis and Darrell Henderson and DeAndre Swift and obviously Miles Sanders. So that's the only difference for me. I'm always going to chase the touches. And anybody notable here that didn't make the cut? Because I think we have the same group of guys here in the top 24. If we had a top 25 and we're going to add one more running back, who's a guy you think might sneak in there? I know this isn't a sleepers video, but still, there's going to be some people out there and say, you didn't have this guy, you didn't have this guy.
Yeah, I'd be torn between saying Travis Etienne or Javonte Williams. I think one of these guys, if not both, but at least one of them is going to at some point break through and become their team's lead back and potentially win people leagues this year because of where they're being drafted. So if I had to pick, I slightly favor Javonte because I do feel like he has an easier chance to beat out Melvin Gordon than Etienne does beating out James Robinson. But I can see it working both ways. So if I had to pick, it'd be one of those guys.
Funny you say that because my next 2 guys, it would be James Robinson or Javonte Williams. I actually think, I give Robinson slight edge because, again, I think he's going to get more touches. I really think he's the lead running back there. Etienne's going to be more of a 3rd down back, a receiver, a gadget guy. I don't trust Urban Meyer in the way he's going to use him. But I really think Javonte is I'm feeling it more that he could be that guy down the stretch in the second half. Kind of like what Cam Akers did last year. You're not going to love him in the first half, but I think he could wind up being super valuable in fantasy playoff time. And that's what really matters. So Javonte is probably my pick. All right, so that's running backs. Right now, our top 24, is this going to change? Absolutely. You always have to stay flexible and see what happens. News is going to happen, especially through preseason games. But right now, that's the way we have them ranked. Who do you agree with? Who do you think is absolutely way too high or low? Let us know. Hit us up with a comment right here in this video. Thanks for watching.